The blossoms are blossoming. It is slightly overcast, but still a wonderful morning. And we have made it to, man, is this week 5? And thus, on my list of 500 greatest albums, this week's are from 449 to 440. Number 449 is Third by Big Star. The first half of the record is mostly uninteresting. The second half gets better, it picks up, there are some interesting songs, and they have some pretty cool string arrangements. The vocalist is mediocre throughout, and I will give this a 2. Boom! Next up, 448 is Synchronicity by The Police. Possibly their biggest selling record. Somebody tell me, was it their biggest selling record? Even though I knew Ghost in the Machine, and I did not know most of this album. Everything on this record is top notch. The writing, the performance, the production, a joy to listen to. It's another one of those where there's lots of different layers. They're accessible from a pop standpoint, but they also have depth and complexity. And I will give Synchronicity a 4. This was a really good listen. Had a good time with this one. Number 447 is Stan Getz Gilberto. This is a smash jazz album from the early 60s. I want to say 63. This album is pure bossa nova. It's what brought that style to America in a lot of ways, and sort of opened the door for a lot of Latin influenced jazz. This album is super smooth, very sophisticated sounding music. Like, as I listen, I feel like I should have a martini in my hand. In my notes I wrote sonic confection, which is a very silly way of saying that it doesn't ask a lot to be enjoyed, and yet the musicianship and the caliber of writing, all top notch, really interesting. Very enjoyable. I can't imagine how it could be any better. A bus. A 4 for this one. Bossa Nova. 446 is Back in the USA by MC5. This is sort of a proto-punk band. Like, they were doing hard rock punk before hard rock and punk. And you can tell, like, they have the energy and the musicianship, the chops to pull off this really fast, high volume music. They don't let their political slant and their punk aspirations get in the way of just rocking and having a good time. So it's a lot of fun to listen to. I'll give this a 3.5. Number 445 is Fly Like an Eagle by the Steve Miller Band. So I have to be honest, this one has a bit of sentiment attached to it for me. Listening to that song, Fly Like an Eagle, which is fantastic and almost worth the price of the album on its own, brings me back to working construction with my dad when I was a kid. It's in some ways like it's the sound of my childhood. We always used to listen to jazz on the radio and a lot of classic rock as I got older, and this song seemed to be always in rotation. Every day I'd listen to Fly Like an Eagle. It encapsulates really everything about the album. Nothing flashy about it. The great organ lines that are through it run through this whole album, and then the understated vocal and harmony that are characteristic of the Steve Miller sound. Yeah, I think this album is really good. And even though there's disparate styles on the album, from the low octane, almost funk, but not quite, sort of spacey rock of Fly Like an Eagle, to the very country dance, everything somehow works, and everything has a place, and everything fits its place really well. I'm going to give this one a 4. Number 444 is The World is a Ghetto by War. So these guys have a special talent for making world funk extremely dreary. I'm not sure how they pulled that off, because funk is usually one of the more exciting styles of music, and adding world influences and rhythms and instruments usually takes that excitement up. But this is a very long and very boring album to listen to. If you have a 1-minute idea, you should say it in 1 minute and be done with it. If you want to extend it to 10 minutes, you better have 10 minutes worth of musical ideas. And these guys got nothing. I'm going to give this a 0.5 because the keyboard player was really good. Number 443 is In Color by Cheap Trick. I didn't realize that I knew some of the songs on this record, but I guess I did. These guys do their thing really well. It's good classic rock, classic/hard rock. Really well done and really well performed. I personally would not call it great, but it is really, really good, and I don't mind listening to it. I'm going to give this a 3.5. 442 is Devo, and I think the album is titled Question, Are We Not Men? Answer, We Are Devo, with an exclamation point. This is very obnoxious music. I appreciate that they don't take themselves too seriously, because a lot of bands do. They do their thing and they do it well, I guess. But their shtick gets a little annoying to listen to for a whole album at a time. I might be able to appreciate it in small chunks. But I'll give it a 1.5. Number 441 was the self-titled album by Suicide, which I think is only one guy, one or two guys. Very strange. The strangest album I've heard so far. Too much wind. It's mostly organ and sort of a weird drum machine with maybe some effects on it, and then the guy's vocals, which I would not call singing, but which are sort of half mumbled, half chanted. It's very hypnotic. This is another one of those albums that makes you think, okay, what is meant by a great album? One way of defining what greatness is that it makes you feel something. And if that's the case, this might be considered great, because I felt terrified and slightly disturbed and a little disgruntled as I listened to it. Almost minimalist in the classical sense, very repetitive and nothing to grasp onto musically, and yet somehow you're drawn into this sound world that this guy creates with just a few things. Artistically, then, I still don't know. I would say unforgettable. I wouldn't want to listen to it again, but I don't think I will forget it for a long time. So for all of those confusing questions without answers, I'm going to give this 3 question marks, because I really don't know how to rate it. I definitely didn't enjoy it. It got super windy, so I had to escape to a covered area for this last one, which I'm gonna do quickly because I'm almost out of battery. Number 440 is Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash by a group called the Pogues. They're a Irish band, hard-edged Irish folk. This is a lot of fun to listen to. I love Irish music in general, so I sort of came into it already enjoying the instruments, the style of playing. So there's a lot to be enjoyed in this album. It's more Irish folk than punk for me. This is another group that doesn't take itself too seriously, which I really enjoyed, and they retain that sense of fun and just enjoying playing the music while still maintaining the high production values that I appreciate in what I would consider a great album, and the high levels of musicianship. So good all around. Again, it's just short of great for me. I'm gonna give this a 3.5. Another 10 albums in. In the next selection, we'll be exploring, I think, some more hip hop. It should be a good time. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Leave a comment if you agree or disagree with any of my choices. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks.